Thank you, Andrew, for that opening address, and welcome. Very much appreciated. It's a pleasure to be here to speak to you today. I'm going to be talking to you today about ram breeding, contract ram breeding and wool handling on an unskirted basis. Andrew's given you a brief background of ourselves. We've been in business for over 100 years. I'm the fourth generation to be running it. We run 4 main properties at North Star, Carrathool, Walker and Jugeong, as Andrew pointed out, and we cover over 72,000 hectares. Our main enterprises are Merino sheep and wool production, and we produce over 2,400 bales of wool annually. And that ranges from 13.8 for the lambs at Congai up to about 20 for the oldest breeders at Wyvern. We also have about 2,000 breeding cows in the system, with most of these are run at Congai. And our new operation at North Star, we have a large dryland cropping operation, and we take a very long-term view of our agricultural assets. That's the spread of the 4 properties there on a map of New South Wales. I'm going to be talking to you, as I say, about contract ram breeding, or one of the subjects today. First of all, our rams are contract bred for us by Hazeldean. A bit of history. In 1999, we realised we had to change genetic track from where we were. It just wasn't working, it wasn't profitable. Prior to the advent of SGA and the studies into genomics and Merino Select, all commercial wool growers had to go on was weather trial data or consultants and classes where they wanted to take us, which was potentially where they could have got a kickback. So in 1999, we decided to conduct a large trial at Wyvern, where we had 4 mobs of 800 ewes joined to 4 different bloodlines, and there's 1 mob of 400 ewes joined to the control. Total 3,600 ewes. The ewes were all 3 years old. Prior to selecting the studs, there's some certain criteria which the studs had to meet. I'll come back to that in a minute. However, the ewes were all joined and all the progeny were run together. All up at that time we had about 16,500 ewes as well, so all lambs from both the trial and our own breeding were put together. And as 1-year-olds, those lambs were fully and independently assessed. When they were assessed at classing at 12 months of age, we took into account certain factors: micron, body weight, micron, body weight, fleece weight, and culling, and the culling percentages, and why those lambs were culled. Was it crook shoulders, muffle, bad feet? What was it? Was short staple? So we took all that into account. We could have also, at the time, just bought wethers from each of those studs and run them on Wyvern to see how they performed. However, we had no intention of rolling over the ewe flock. We had to see how those rams performed across our ewes long term. Some of the factors that came into play to select the studs were, could that stud supply the number of rams a year we wanted, which in Wyvern's case was 120 rams. Also at that time we were running large ewe flocks at Pevensey and Hunthawong. They've now been sold. Total requirements were nearly 250 a year. The stud also had to be going in the direction we wanted to go. If it wasn't going to do that, it wasn't going to work at the time. In 1999, prior to the advent of Merino Select, most studs were closed. You went to a stud master, he'd say, right, I can reduce your farm by using, 9.199, he'll reduce your farm over. But the bulk of the rams we were taking, we were always going to be brought back to that stud's particular, their average numbers. So it wasn't going to work. In 2001, we selected Hazeldean as our new genetic source, and then a well-known consultant 4 years later suggested, why don't you go down the contract ram breeding program, where you've got far more control into the input of the genetics coming into the flock. Jim Litchfield was very accommodating in this regard, and I can only give him full credit. But I certainly do not believe for one iota that there is nothing that science can't teach us about traditional sheep breeding. It's a lot of bullshit, putting it bluntly. The system is, there's approximately 600 ewes at Rosevale called the TA field flock. Those ewes are run through every year by ours and the Hazeldean class of being Craig Wilson, and approximately 50% are turfed out every year. The ewes coming back into that flock are selected from their stud and also some of the ewes from the contract ram breeding program. We don't take any of the ewe progeny, we only take the rams. In early mid-October, about 4 or 5 of us will sit down around the table, myself, Jim, and Craig and the two managers of Rosevale and Wyvern, and we will sit down around a table and debate which size we're going to use. Prior to then, we will have all been onto the SGA website to figure out which rams are ranking the highest, and then just debate them. And at the end of the day, we will use 4 to 5 rams. So that's just a selection of, some of the flock rams at Wyvern, and a bit of an indication of what the country looks like in a reasonable year. Before selecting any of the sires, they have to have had at least 1 year's joining to ensure any progeny testing. And make sure there's no black spots or that sort of thing coming out of them. We also look and take into account some additional parameter figures. For example, WEC, or net lambs weaned. It's not a profit driver in our operation, so we don't look at it for the rams selected in this contract breeding program. We've chosen the MP Plus index because that best meets our objectives or we want our flock to go. At the moment, we intend to drive down our fibre diameter by 2 microns over 10 years and increase clean fleece weight by 1 kilo and increase our genetic fat. We also, by continually entering weather trials, monitor our performance. This book is absolutely essential, I believe, to do that. That's one of the many weather trials being held. I'm sure you're all aware of Craig Wilson's trials. It also helps in our marketing ability of our surplus sheep. And remember, we produce many thousand surplus sheep across our properties each year. We go down this path for the simple reason being, I don't want the complications of running a stud, having to continually monitor and measure, so we let Hazelden do it all for us, and it's simple. The flock rams from this operation are sent to Benangaroo and Wyvern. At Congo we have our own stud up there and breed our own rams up there. Although it's a commercial operation, we work very much together with Hazelden hand in hand. For example, if it's dry there, we can take the rams early. If it's dry in Wyvern, they'll work with us and hold the rams longer. So it's a really good setup. And the advantage for Hazelden is they know how many rams they're going to have forward sold at a certain price for up to 3 years in advance. That's just a photo of the Wyvern sale there. There was I think it was about 15,000 sheep there, and they grossed over $1 million. So we did pretty well out of that one. Some of the challenges. Well, this is an interesting one. We need to ensure that the data supplied by the studs and then formatted by SGA is accurate. If there's any fudging going on, we're a shot duck. We don't know what genetics we're going to be getting. The other thing about it, I believe, is SGA must consult with commercial wool growers to make sure that the weightings for the most important economic traits for us, which is fleece weight and fibre diameter, stay right at the top of those rankings in that MP Plus index. If SGA decide to change the weightings of that index, they need to inform us. So therefore, then we can then change what index we want to follow. If we can't do that, we're a shot duck. Some of the questions I've been asked in the past: how can we prove that going down this track has continued to increase our bottom line? I can't say that unequivocally because we don't have a control mob, but I know by monitoring our production in weather trial data, we haven't gone backwards, and at the end of the day, we just can't lose, I believe. That's probably it for the contract ram breeding. Do you want me to take questions now, Andrew, or keep going? Keep going, righto. Just a bit of it's a description on Wyvern at Carrathool. We've owned it since 1946. It's 52,000 hectares, and it produces over 1,100 bales of wool. 12 months ago, we completed construction of a brand new 12-stand shed and quarters, and we hold our annual on-property sale in October every year. It's typical Riverina country, red and grey clays with a 20k river frontage on the southern end. What have we got here? Nothing. Here we are. That's what the place can look like in a drought. No, can I go back one here, Andrew? Can I just press, back arrow? No, not there. Okay. So there's another photo I thought was going to be there. There's not. So at Wyvern, we've decided to go down the path of unskirted. We decided to go down this path after the 2007 shearing, where we had a contractor there and a heap of wool rollers. No matter how much you hounded them or jumped up and down, they didn't give a damn. They were just continually reefing fleece wool off the fleeces when it was skirted and chucking to the pieces line. So we were being screwed in a word. So at Wyvern, we've gone down the path and the whole shed is unskirted. When we engaged our new contractor in 2008, he was made fully aware of this. But the most critical thing about the whole thing is to ensure that all stain is kept out. We also ensure that we maintain quality control. It's all pressed into one line, but we employ a class which, strictly speaking, you don't need to do. But that's our bit of quality control. There might be 2 to 3% of fleeces which have to come out. They might be short, coloured, really tender, so we can just pull them out and handle them normally. Also, by having the classer there, it means we can put a stencil on your oddments like your pieces, your bellies, that sort of thing, which then goes through the auction system. And the thing is, we don't carry out a pre-shearing crutch. The ewes are crutched in March prior to lambing, and then we shear in September at weaning. Although it's all unskirted, it's noted on the specky sheets by the classer, so everyone's fully aware what we've done. We forward sell at least 80 to 85% of the clip, and that way we know what our returns are going to be, and we have to offer very little wool through the auction system. So we employ a classer for quality control reasons, and that 2 to 3% is removed. That's just one of the fleeces there in the old shed, absolute ripper. Been through that one. That's the interior of the new shed there and some of the yards. It was a huge investment, but very pleased we've done it. It makes life much easier for the rousies. So some of the benefits. Well, there's at least a 3 to 5% reduction in costs. You know, that can range from 8 down to 1%. But on $1 million bale clip, that's $10,000 straight to the bottom line for no effort. So for us, it well and truly pays. One of the biggest reasons for the cost being reduced is there are no wool rollers. At the Wyvern shed, it's a 12-stand shed. We employ 9 shearers and 3 learners equals 12. Then there's 5 rousies, cook, overseer, expert, panner up, 1 and classer, total 21. We employ an extra rousie to ensure no stain enters the clip. And that is, I can continue to harp on about that because to me it's absolutely critical. But without having 6 wool rollers, as you would in a traditional team, there's a saving of about 20% which goes to your bottom line. The other cost saving we make, all our wool is sold on a net basis, where we only have wool tax and freight to store to be deducted. And it pays dividends for us, as I say. Most of our forward contracts have a 5 to 10% tolerance to either under or over deliver. And we've been selling wool for this way since 1994, and we're well experienced in the pitfalls and advantages which can occur. We've also sold up to 200 bales forward for 3 years in advance. But before going down this path, there's a few things I believe you need to know. Firstly, you need to benchmark your individual businesses to know what is your cost of production and therefore what is a profitable level to sell at. You also need to understand decile charts, to understand in historical terms the price you're being offered and where it sits. Is it in the 30th or the 80th decile? To me, that's critical. The other main advantage to me with forward contracts, you're not waiting for a suitable sale date to sell your wool. As soon as the wool is tested, the contracts are finalised, you're paid. Simple. No. Okay. Some of the challenges. Well, you can have inconsistency with your rouseabouts. It's essential to keep them on side and tell them why their job is so important to keep the stain out. Although in our new shed it's got a raised board, it's much easier for the rousies to ensure no stain is there. The shearers are shearing, and I continue to say it's critical for this to be carried out. I believe there is a desperate need for wool to be a new category for this wool to be made, where wool which is unskirted but has been overseen by a qualified wool classer should be able to go through the auction system. It's on the speckies. There's no reason why it shouldn't be able to be done. One of our challenges was the first year we went down this path, we only had about 65% of the clips sold, which was a pretty handy levels. We didn't do any more. So when we came to shearing, the price started to slip away, we didn't do any more. So when the wool was delivered, we had 35% of the clip unhedged. Call that 70% with the tolerances in the clip. We were screwed. We had to take the price which was offered for that balance of the 30% of wool which was unskirted, because it doesn't meet AWEC standards. So we subsequently learnt to sell the bulk of our wool forward and make sure we're covered for it. We've got scale on our side, which makes life much easier negotiating contracts. It's pretty easy to go out there and negotiate a 200 bar contract forward for 3 years with the scale we've got. So we're very, very lucky in that regard. And as mentioned, this method of preparation won't suit everyone, but it suits us down to the ground. So that's pretty much it. So thank you. That's it.